welcome back to our, do we want to call this part B?
Part two, man.
Part two. A, B switch. Part, 1-2 switch. Shut up. All right, welcome back to part two, where we're going to continue talking about those top 5 mistakes that cable companies make. The last time we got through only 1, 2, and 3. Jesse's stories were a little long, but we still love them. And then today we're going to try to finish up with 4 and 5. You ready to get this started, dude?
I promise it's going to be long-winded all over again.
Great. So let's jump right into number 4. They're creating jobs instead of careers.
They're making this when I started, I remember coming in, I was all excited. I'm like, all right. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, right? I'm a young kid. I got a pregnant girlfriend. A few months before that, I was living in a damn pop-up camper. Like, I had no career trajectory. I had always thought I'm going to go play college football. When I got in trouble and that didn't happen, I'm like, okay, I got to figure out what I'm doing. So
I hate to sound like a jackass, but I'm pretty sure there's like 17 movies out there that explain everything you just said.
There may be.
I feel like they've made a movie about this multiple times. I'm pretty sure frickin' Lifetime has one on Weekly about it.
Well, if they'd have done the story of Jesse, it'd be like, and you know what? The Rock would have to play me though, because that would just make it epic. So if we ever have the story of Jesse, Dwayne Johnson's got to play me because he would just be cool like I am. So either
Buddy,
that
we could barely afford the fucking hand clap. You really think we're gonna get fucking Wayne Johnson on here?
Well, maybe not, but you can always dream, dude.
Yeah, of course you can dream.
But I didn't know what I was going to do. So, like, when I fell into building cable, I'm like, well, I don't, and I did it for a couple of years, but I'm thinking to myself, I'm a contractor. I get paid every week, but I don't have any insurance. I don't have any benefits.
Hold on. I just need to remind everybody how you fell into cable. You fucking walked outside and yelled at a guy who was fucking driving on your lawn.
That's pretty much accurate. Yeah, I was drinking in my buddy's driveway. I was driving my girlfriend's car. I was drinking 151 Bacardi, and I drank almost a whole bottle. I was really good, feeling good. And I couldn't probably tell you what my middle name was at the moment. I was gone. And this guy in a bucket truck almost hit her car, and it pissed me off. I don't know. I was just pissed off anyway, I think, because when I drink, I get real mad. And so I was like, hey, motherfucker, what the hell was that? And what are you doing? And blah, blah, blah. And this other guy, here's the big T40 bucket truck, and then here comes the guy in the little white pickup, the boss guy. And he goes, calm down, sport. I'm like 18, so he called me sport, which even when I worked for him, on my hard hat, it said sport.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But anyway, that's how I got into cable.
This is the beginning of another movie.
Dude, it's true though. That's my life. I was like, I don't know what possessed me to say that. Like, where I was like, hey man, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, but I'm better at it than you are. I don't even know where that line came from, but I've told that story a million times with my friends and everybody, and it's really what I said. I don't know why the fuck I said it, and I had no idea that it was going to put me on this lifelong trajectory that I've been on. But I was like, yeah, motherfucker, I don't know what the fuck it is you're doing, but I could do it better than you, and my name's not Sport. and yeah, dude, he's like, yeah, you want a job? Yeah. And I met up with him the Monday, and I started working that following Monday. This was on like a Thursday, and I started working for him on Monday.
Jesus Christ.
But I knew doing that, like, I didn't want to do that forever, because when that project I was working on was done, they were going to move to another city, state, whatever. Well, I had a pregnant girlfriend. I wanted to be a dad. I wanted to be around my family, my friends. So I knew I didn't want to take off like going city to city to city. So I'm like, I got to find something else to do. When it started slowing down is when I put in an application to go to work at Comcast. And when I got there, I was like, dude, this is a career, right? Like, I can move up. Well, over the years, as things changed, like, I would be one of the top techs in the system, and my system was a big system. So you're talking about almost half the state of Tennessee and a fourth of the state of Georgia, and it's all in a straight line. And out of every tech in that area, I was either number 1 or number 2. Almost every 6 months, I was a tech, right? Where they did the 6-month rolling numbers.
Yep.
And there was only one guy that ever always beat me. And if he did, it was by like 0.1%. Like, it was so tight, it was like, didn't even matter. So it was almost like a 1A and a 1B. But I was like, all right, I'm one of the best techs here. When I got to CT4, it took me fucking like a year and a half or 2 years to get into a CT4 class. And I had made the metrics for CT4 the first 6 months after taking CT3, right? So I should have been a CT3 and a CT4 within a year, right? And done, right?
Yeah.
But what happened was, I told you, I fell through that ceiling, and then they blamed me for it, wrote me up, took me out of the class I was supposed to start that Monday. Like, there was multiple times. And one time, this is no bullshit. Remember I told you I cut my thumb that one time?
And the guy blamed you for bleeding on his siding?
On his siding, you remember that?
Yep.
Well, they actually wrote me up for that the next day. I was supposed to start CT4 class 2 weeks later. I was on this write-up for 3 weeks. After they started that CT4 class, Maria, the HR lady, called me and said, we were mistaken in that. We're taking you off this write-up.
Oh, my God.
I fucking blasted that woman. Now, she was hot. I'm not going to lie. She had a nice ass. And she probably would have got it a lot worse had I not seen her at that baseball park that day in those short shorts. God. Jesus. But moving forward, I blasted that fucking woman. I'm like, so you fucked me again out of getting into class and getting a pay raise over cutting my fucking finger? And you know what? Here's the thing. I didn't even sign that write-up. I said, you can fire me right now. I'm not signing that. I didn't do anything wrong. And I didn't. No. So I guess by standing my ground, they finally retracted it. But by retracting it late, I still got fucked out of class again. So it seemed like the whole time I was in this career that no matter how hard I worked, no matter what happened, I was getting fucked. I felt like I was getting fucked, right? Like a lot. And like remember I told you just a few minutes ago about the $3,000?
Yeah.
A year before that, and I've told this story before, but it just fits here. A year before that, I applied to be a supervisor over the installers and service techs up on the northest side of our system. And I was one of the number one tech. I was the number one tech in our system at that point. And they gave it to a guy who was a system tech 20 years ago, who is now working in the warehouse. And I'm like, he don't even know what's going on out here anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, this don't even make sense. So I was furious about it. And I went to HR and I'm like, this ain't going to matter. But I feel like the reason, and I can't prove it, but the reason you gave it to him and not me is because I'm young. And I felt like that's what it was because I was younger, right? And and I really believe they're like, well, these older guys ain't going to listen to him, right? I really believe that was the issue. But I'm an asshole. You're going to do what I fucking say. Like, and my kids will tell you I'm an asshole. If I tell them to do something, they're going to fucking do it. And that's the same thing with a 50-year-old man. If I have to be a prick with him, I would have been. But they never gave me that opportunity. So, and then that year, fast forward a year later, I got that $3,000, but guess who won it for the supervisor? The guy that got the job up there. And he got $6,000.
Oh, what the fuck, man? Y'all make way more than I fucking did, and I'm up north.
No, like weekly pay, we didn't make nowhere near. And that's the only time I ever got a bonus the whole time I lived there, outside of like when everybody made their metrics and they gave that quarterly. They used to give that quarterly. Yep. But anyway, what I'm getting at is I was busting my ass so hard because I wanted to, like, my goal at that point was I'm going to be a tech ops supervisor and I'm going to hang in there and I'm just going to get tenured and I'm going to keep putting money in my 401k. I'm going to use this job. I'm going to raise my kids up, be able to afford to send them to a good school, whatever. And I'm going to do, and that's how I'm going to get to, because supervisors make a pretty good living, right? They do. They put a lot of shit, but they do. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. Well, no matter what I did, I was always being like overlooked. And it just got to a point where it was bubbling, right? And like, finally I finished CT4. And I told you this before. I took the networking class instead of the in-home bullshit, whatever it was.
You took the networking side of it instead.
Yeah. I didn't want to take that.
Instead of customer facing.
Yeah, fuck. I didn't care about all that. I was like, I'm going to take this because if I pass this, maybe I'd have a chance to get a system job, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
And I took it and I passed it. I don't think I made a good grade on it. I made like an 82 or whatever the hell. It wasn't great, but I passed the damn thing. And then about 6 months after that, a system tech job came open in the fucking system I worked in. like in the Georgia side. They gave it to
Oh
a fucking
shit.
business tech up in Tennessee. Gave it to a business tech. That damn guy lived 45 minutes from my system. And I'm
Jesus
like,
Christ.
what the fuck? And I was a better tech than he was. You know, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. This isn't a career. I felt like I did such a good job with it that they wanted to keep me there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Yep.
had I
Because you
had
were a successful one that didn't bitch. You didn't open your mouth. You just did the work that was put in front of you, and they didn't like that.
and had I been like, if I'd have had a couple of months that had shitty metrics, but I had some months that were good, I bet you I would have got a promotion. I know that sounds stupid, but I felt like I would have. But since
No, you're probably right.
I was pigeonholed in one spot. I was held in this one spot because I did do my job. I did stand up for myself when I felt I needed to, but I didn't say a
Yep.
whole lot. I just came in, did my job, went home, lived my life. But I did it to the best of my ability. And you don't get a lot of guys like that. So
You
when you
really
get
don't.
one, why don't you fucking, we're going to keep him there because, he does a great job. Let's just keep him there. And that's how I felt like. So, and fast forward to today, I'm not in the field anymore. But if you look at it, the like with the metrics we just mentioned, how tight they are and how guys are trying to progress, it's not a career anymore. You're not
No.
there to have a career. It is a job.
I think it all comes back to that incentive, and you're taking any and all incentive away from these guys.
Absolutely, dude. And it's to the point where it's disheartening, right?
It
Because
is. It is. I say that to the technicians I used to work with all the time. I'm like, man, like I hate that you guys have to deal with this shit. It's so fucking terrible.
well, it bothers me because I worked so hard for so long, and the only thing I really have to show for it now is a lot of knowledge in my head, right?
Yeah.
Like about things that some of them are kind of obsolete now, and some of it will go on for the next 2 decades, right? It's going to be a long time before everything's a fiber to the home plant. Now, that's the newest and best thing out there, fiber to the curb, whatever they're doing, different systems. But it costs millions and millions and millions of dollars to completely rebuild a system. So we're going to have grandkids before there's fiber to the home all over the country, right?
Oh
They're
yeah.
building it in spots, but HFC plants, they're going to run those damn things until they just fall apart.
Well, yeah, because again, it's all about that bottom dollar.
Yeah, absolutely it is. So, but these guys are coming in now, even in-house techs. Like in-house does have a lot more perks, but even in-house techs, it's not a career anymore. Like the
No.
odds of you working your ass off and becoming a supervisor, then working your ass off and becoming a manager or whatever, district manager over an area, what they used to call that, a KMA, like a certain amount of states or whatever.
I
Like
don't even know. Oh, to us it was always supervisor, manager, and then you had the FMA manager, or no, supervisor, FMA manager, and then the guy who ran the region.
yeah, the regional, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, regional
So
manager.
the odds of bringing a guy in, learning everything there, working his ass off to get to that point is almost impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if that's the case, and going into it, it's not a career. You're not trying to better yourself through your career. You're just working to provide for your family. It's just a job.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. It just turned into a freaking job. And I think the guys who did it that don't do it anymore, that's what they would end up telling you is why they don't do it, is because there was very little room for progression. Because I think what ends up happening is the technician gets to a certain spot in his or her career where they just go, all right, well, what else is there to do? And when they don't get any help to get in any direction, or they don't see any, clear direction, or nobody helps them out, they just get stuck and they get in that bubble that they just can't get out of. And it what's the incentive to stick around? So to me, unless these companies change it 100%, that part's just going to continue to get worse and worse. Is you're going to continue to hire people that truly show that if you don't give a fuck, they don't give a fuck. And it sucks because that's the opposite direction we should be going in.
Absolutely, dude. Because, like, I'm not the greatest at, we talk about this like with the show, right? Like, you're more apt to, line things up, and I'm more apt to give my opinions on them, right? But so you're more, the way you think is different than the way I think. That's the point I'm getting at, right? We think
Yeah.
differently, but we get to the same points, right? For the most part.
For the most part.
But everybody's a different individual. So everybody has a different strength and a different weakness, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's some guys that come in that their strength forever is going to be in front of a customer, right? As a tech. They're good at that. They flourish in that environment. You're going to have some guys, like you've seen them system techs that are about 350 pounds, and they barely make weight to get in a bucket, and they don't want to be around any fucking body. They just want to run their outages and be left the fuck alone. And they could have a system job or a supervisor's job or whatever. They don't fucking want it because they're making such big money, and they really only work during outages and like sweeping out a few legs of noise or sweeping and tracking noise. So that's all they really worry about. And that's really low stress unless it's an outage. Being a system tech really is pretty easy outside of outages. Outages is what I hated because I couldn't have a life outside of cable. That's what I didn't like. But
well, and I feel like that's why I left cable, was because I couldn't have a life out of cable. After 13 years of doing it and still having the same schedule, and my life changing and all the things that changed with the company, all the go with the flow kind of things I did, and then when life got hard for me and I needed it, it wasn't available.
Yeah, dude. But that's what I'm saying. Like, different people have different strengths and weaknesses, different environment at home, different circumstances. Like, they fit in different slots, right? It's not a one size fits all. Like you buy a hat that's a fitted hat. They'll say one size fits all, and it stretches. That isn't how it works in like the cable industry. Guys have different strengths and weaknesses, and they fit in different areas. So like, they need to spend enough time if they're going to make this a career or offer a career to guys. They need to have enough time to get to know them to the point of what their strengths and weaknesses are, so they can be like, well, he might fit over here, or he might fit over here, or he does fit where he is. Like, I guess in a way you could look at it that I did fit as a tech, but I also had more to offer in that, because I thought outside the box a lot, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, we could do this, this, and this to fix this, where we've had 15 people there. Well, let's try this and see if it'll fix it. I'm not going to give you an example, but you know what I'm saying. I always thought outside the box. And that was kind of the way my first supervisor, the one I got along with so well, it was kind of like that. He thought that way. And he was a great supervisor. And I felt like I could have done that too. I was just never given the opportunity. And there's so many techs out there right now that are in the exact same boat.
Yeah, and now those opportunities are being taken away from them because of COVID. And I think now you're getting a lot more contractors than in-house. I keep hearing the turnover rate is significant in a lot of these bigger companies now, but they don't hire replacements. So what do you think they're doing instead?
Well, our number 5 and last topic is underpaying and undertraining contractors.
Yep.
If they don't replace in-house techs, they have to have techs, so they're going to hire contractors. Contractors are cheaper for the bottom line, and they save money, right? That's the whole point of having contractors.
Exactly.
But the problem with it, and we're going to kind of be a little redundant based off of a past episode, but there's going to be a lot of topics here we need to mention. The problem I have is that, like, we're going to use like an example, and we're going to use like MediaCom. That's a company, okay? MediaCom, if they hire a contract company, they're going to have a contract wrote up, and it's going to say how much they're going to pay per this, per that, per whatever. Now, I'm going to throw out a number. It's not a real number. This is just an example. If they say to ABC Cable, this contracting company, and they say, we're going to pay you $170 for every triple play install you complete, okay? And in the contract, as they're negotiating, the contracting company is going to fight and they're going to try to get as much money as they can, right? Because they got to keep their doors open. But at the same time, the companies will be like, well, if you don't take it, then I'll go over here and hire, DEF Cable, right? And they can do the same work that you can do. So really, they're kind of pigeonholed to be like, we got to take this to keep our doors open. So they're kind of at a disadvantage anyway. So like say, okay, they'll come back and say, okay, we'll take that, but can you make sure we get, 300 a month or something? You know what I mean? Or whatever the number
Yeah.
is. So they'll negotiate to that, but the price point is going to be whatever the cable operator says it is, right? So,
and being the cable, and by cable operator, you're referring to the person who is paying the contracting company.
exactly. We're using Mediacom, for instance, or Comcast or Charter or whoever. They're gonna pay. They're gonna put the money out there and say, this is what I'm gonna pay you for this, and take it or leave it, because there's 500 more companies out there I can hire to do this, and they'll find me techs to do it.
Yeah.
So they'll take it. Well, what happens there is it rolls downhill. Shit runs downhill. We've talked about this before.
Oh yeah.
So what's going to end up happening is they're going to get $170 for every completed triple play. And I'm just using, that's not a real number. That's just my example number. Now that $170, they send a tech out to do the job. Okay, he's going to get $50, $45, $50. And we've done triple plays. They can take anywhere from 30 minutes in an apartment
to all fucking day.
To all fucking day, really, yeah.
Yep.
And so that contractor's like, dude, I got to do 2 or 3 of these today just to make some money. You know what I mean?
Yep. Oh yeah.
And that goes back to where I was talking about that long ass drop. He's got to make that money. I got to do it. I got to make something today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that contractor is only going to get like $50 of that. So the contracting company is keeping $120 off the top of his head. And 99% of the time, they now it seems like they're using subs more than just in-house contractors. Contracting companies have their in-house techs, quote unquote in-house techs, and then they have the subs that work with them too. So
and I don't think a lot of technicians realize that you don't have just contractors, you have subcontractors. So you have contractors off of contracting companies.
Absolutely, yeah. So like now they're paying their in-house guys $50 and they're paying their subcontractors $35.
Yeah.
Right?
That's crazy.
It just keeps going down. And then they negotiate too, right? So the subcontractor's negotiating with the contractor, and he's trying to get as much money. And sometimes what'll happen, they'll give the subs more than they give the guys that work for them, just to get the work done, depending on the situation. So like the whole pay structure is fucking broken. Yeah. It's broken. And you got half of these subs, you got to think, these subcontractors are paying out the ass for insurance, right?
Oh yeah,
paying out the ass for insurance, paying for trucks, their own truck. They got to maintenance that shit, man. When you put 300,000 miles on a truck running, doing installs, I mean, you got to get your oil changed every 3,000 miles. You got to, say, you break a fan belt or something. You got to get that. You got to pay for any maintenance. I bust a tire, get a flat tire. I got to pay for that. I got to buy a ladder rack. I got to buy a ladder. My ladder slid off the pole and cracked. Now I got to go buy another ladder. I need a meter.
Yeah,
Meters are fucking expensive. So you're thinking about the amount of money up front these guys are paying just to do this job for the little bit of money they're going to give them to do it. And they wonder why. I was going to say,
and these are the fucking ones that are, and these are the guys in the industry, in my opinion, who are constantly getting their balls busted.
Absolutely, man. And you can't, you can't be, like we talked about it before. You can't hate on contractors. I used to, you used to, everybody does.
Yeah.
But you can't blame them for just coding shit out, because they're just trying to make a living, and they're scraping them so tight. So that's one side of it. And then we're going to jump to the other side of it that I've mentioned some before. But then they take these guys that were pizza delivery guys, or fucking worked in a factory or the grocery store or whatever, or they were a parking rec department, fucking, janitor or whatever the hell they did. I'm just throwing shit out there. Worked at McDonald's. They walk in the door. They don't have a fucking clue about cable TV, as they don't know. They don't know nothing about it. They probably know how to hook up an Xbox. They probably know what a piece of coax looks like. But outside of that, they have no clue about RF, about anything. They don't know. So now what they do, it's fucking redundant, man. Because if you take a guy who is literally scraping his ass off, trying to make a living, and then you put a guy with him and you say, hey, just teach him how to do this while you're working, trying to make money for your family, that's never going to happen.
No.
Okay?
Never.
He's going to use that guy as a fucking gopher. And he's going to say, this looks like a two-way, looks like this. Got one on top and two on the bottom. I need one. Go fucking get it. It's in my tackle box. or whatever. But he's not going to teach him anything because he don't give a fuck about that guy. And it's not that he doesn't like him. It's like, okay, this is my livelihood, and this isn't my responsibility to do this.
Yeah. You're pretty much just covering your ass.
Yeah, and that's what needs to happen. It is what it is. Now, since that's been the way it has been for so long, that's where I talked in our in-house contractor episode about the third-party certification, right? Like all these, like over the years, I took some of the NCTI course. I actually took all the Master Tech courses, which going back and looking back on that, I took 2 of them, I think, or 3 at Charter, and then I finished the rest of them afterwards because I was like, well, I get a diploma or whatever. So I took one like every 3 or 4 months. And to be honest with you, it was like going to college. It was a great big giant book they mailed me, dude. It looked like the Bible. Okay, it looked like the Bible each time. Like not just the New Testament, like both New and Old Testament Bible, like one you'd see at your grandma's house. It's been there since like 1920. And they would mail you this, and then you'd log in, and it'd be a fat guy with a fucking like board behind him, and he'd be like up there rubbing his belly and like writing shit, you know, you know, and whatever. And you had to listen to this bullshit just to go to the next lesson. It was so fucking bad. And
That's
it was
fucking crazy, dude. Fuck that. Especially if you're spending money for stuff like that.
Well, after I was done with it, I never did any more. I was like, well, I'm so close. I might as well finish these last 3 or whatever it was. Yeah. And I did it. And I don't regret doing it. Now, has it ever helped me? Absolutely fucking not. The only thing I've ever got out of it is that when I went to the SCTE show a couple years ago, my name's on the big Master Tech Hall of Fame thing in the big like their booth.
Is it really?
No shit, man. I'll send you a picture of it. I swear it says Jesse and my full name there, and it's like, that's pretty cool. And so that was cool, but I mean, in reality, it didn't really do me any good. Now, on the flip side of that, I've taken a couple of the SCTE courses, and they are horrible. Like, I actually, not long ago, I took their field safety course, and it looks, you're not, the idea is you're taking guys that have a background in different things, and most of them that's going to be a tech probably wasn't the greatest student in school. Can you agree with that?
Yeah, I have to say I was a shitty fucking student in school.
Okay, so in reality, most guys that are going to go into cable, most of them weren't great students. They just weren't. So having to read like PDF files and shit, and like I'm talking paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, and then do a quiz on shit that you don't even understand, that's not good either. Right?
No.
And then these companies require certificate, like a certificate in like, I think their BPI, in order just to work on their system. And they've made that into like extortion, in my opinion, because they're charging these guys $100 a head. I guarantee you somebody in that office has the answers to every one of their questions. They go through, help them pass the test, print their damn thing off, and go to work. Did they learn anything? Absolutely not. So there's been nothing that they've tried to do that is going to, improve their ability in the field.
No. So you have something that's been failing time over time, every single year, year after year. And all as you're doing is you're pretty much, in my opinion, you're almost like encouraging poor behavior, because you're encouraging these guys to, like you said, pretty much extort individuals to spend money to become a contractor, to spend even more money on all the equipment, to then get piss poor training because it costs too much to put them out. But the whole reason why you're using them in the first place is because they're cheaper. And then they have to spend all this money on all these freaking tools, which you probably make money off of too on top of it, hoping that somebody out of all of this has a good experience.
I will say this. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm going to plug a contracting company and another company because I feel like it's relevant and we're talking about it. There's a company out, and I believe they're in Oklahoma. I seen it on LinkedIn. TNT Cable, TNT Contracting, something like that. They used that CATV Training Institute, and they won an award through Cox for the best improvement year to year. I think it was like 2018 to 2019, and they were standing there with their group of people and whatever, And that is they have a good product. I really believe in it. I've taken a couple of them. It's not like going to school. The problem is, I feel like that, you know, these guys they're being pinched so tight that they don't want to invest any money in these guys because they're scared to death they're going to quit. But the reason they're going to quit is because they're not giving them an ample opportunity to succeed.
Well, yeah, because they're pinching dimes before they even have a time to really spend them. I don't know. To me, it's just, again, you're trying to save $1 in one place, but you're losing it in so many other places.
Absolutely. But I was looking at it and I kind of did some research talking about this subject, and I've been involved in this kind of area for a while. If you look at price points, if you're required, like charters requiring a third party, and Cox requires a third party, and they give options. And I think the only company in the country, honestly, that don't require a third party certification is Comcast.
Wow.
But I believe the reason that is because Comcast will give the contractor like all their training material. And
I do not know, actually.
Well, I believe this is the fact because I did train in an office that trained Comcast contractors.
Yep.
And from what I understand is that, and I did this because they gave me a PowerPoint that Comcast had actually given the contractor that we were supposed to train the new techs with. So it's not technically co-employment, because co-employment is where like Comcast would come in and train the contractors. That's illegal, right? So you can't do that. But every other company across the country are requiring third-party certifications. A lot of times guys are doing it the fastest way they can and the cheapest, which at this point, honestly, I just touched on it. The Training Institute, that company has the lowest price point, and their courses are engaging and they're not real long and boring and dull. And if you actually threw it out there the right way, I believe that, it's a cheap enough option that you could give these guys a little bit of, a head start instead of just throwing them to the wolves. But, it takes an investment. And that's with anything. Like anything they want to do, like if they would invest, if nothing else, in just hand tools for these guys and maybe like a course or two that is actually relevant to what they're doing, man, they would see a drastic improvement in turnover.
But again, I think it all goes back to whoever I forget how you always refer to them as, the actual company itself.
The cable operator.
The cable operator, whatever it may be. I feel like it is like, no matter how I look at it, it always comes back down to there because, you look at it, well, the guys training the contractors and above the contractors and even the guys who are hiring the contractors, but you broke down that entire thing. Even just to try to keep your contracting company afloat, you already have to hack and dash enough prices to keep a contracting company. So
just to keep the lights on. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So they're being forced to screw their own guys. So again, I don't know. I don't always want to point my finger at the big bad cable company, but I just feel like that good old cable guy that used to show up at your front door that everybody knew, it's just disappearing. It's not a thing anymore.
I think, we said earlier that shit rolls downhill. Well, if pay rates would improve from the cable operator to the contractor, all right, here's what would happen. That is the big factor to the whole thing. So if the cable operator, say that we're just using this example number again, 170. If they said, okay, next year we're going to pay you 220. Okay. Just think about that for a minute. Don't sound like a big jump, but that's a huge jump when you're doing 300 or 400 or 500 a month, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to pay you 220 for a triple play starting next year. Okay. Say they come out and that's the deal. Okay. And we're going to count that as cost of living, blah, 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 whatever. If they raised prices to what they're paying the contractor can therefore raise prices for what they're paying the tech, that therefore they can take some of that money and invest it back into, I don't know, trucks or training, like a paid training, because it costs like most contractors will pay guys $7.25 an hour for 2 weeks to ride around.
Yeah. Yep.
So they got more money. They can improve the training program. Okay. Well, we're making enough now. We can bring guys in for 2 weeks now, and we can actually get them set and ready to go into the field instead of just throwing them to the wolves because we can't afford to pay them.
Yeah.
So the biggest problem to me is, and this is the biggest mistake for a cable operator, in my opinion, a cable company, is where they don't pay the contractors, because the contractors, to a customer, a contractor and an in-house tech is just a fucking cable guy, right? They don't
See,
care.
up here, that was a huge thing. Like, guys, people used to answer their doors going, "Hey, are you a contractor?" No, no. To the point where I'd have buddies that they'd be like, "Yeah, I'm a contractor. Why?" I'm all set, thanks. And they'd be like, "Perfect, cancel it, door. See ya."
Yeah, I mean, there's the horror stories, but like and for 98% of like customers, a tech's a tech, right? But and
No, like that was a huge thing up here. Like that was always asked, "Are you a contractor or are you an in-house tech?"
they must have been some really shitty contractors where you're at.
No, not necessarily, but yeah,
what you're
probably.
saying, like for the most part, most Americans or Canadians or whoever, most people that have cable service sees a person with a shirt that has the logo that's gonna fix their shit or install their shit. All right, they don't care if you're, most of them don't care if you're a contractor or an in-house tech or a fucking. They don't care if you fucking live with your grandma and play with Pokemon cards and you did this one time just to give it a shot. They don't give a fuck as long as they're getting their shit. So that's bad for overall business of the cable company if they're not paying the guys, paying their partners enough money, the contracting companies, in order to properly train and develop the techs that are going to be representing their company. That's the point I'm making.
Yeah. No.
So it's just bad business.
No, it is. It's bad all the way around. I mean,
and I'll give you an example. Yesterday, and this is completely against, and has nothing to do with cable, but this will make sense to you. Elon Musk is one of the top 5 richest people in the world. We can agree on that, right? He just passed Mark Zuckerberg.
Actually, no, I have no idea who the fuck this guy is. I just heard some rapper say his name.
He owned, he bought out, he owned like 11% of PayPal before it got real big when eBay bought it out. He's doing that SpaceX shit now where he's trying to send like rockets to Mars. Like he's a billionaire, right?
Really? Okay.
He's a very interesting individual, man. I look him up. I read about him the other day. He's actually from like South Africa or something.
Oh shit.
But he's a really interesting human being. Well, he was out of college. He finished college at the University of, I think, Pittsburgh or something, and he got his bachelor's degree. Well, he wanted to get his master's degree. Well, this was in early 2000. He went and got his master's. Was working on his master's in California. Well, and he was close to Silicon Valley, which is like the tech capital of the world. Facebook and Google and everything's out there.
Yep.
So he decided to jump on the tech bandwagon. And he was learning to code when he was like 11 years old. Like he was teaching himself how to do this. He's a brilliant guy.
Jesus.
Well, he took and him and his brother built a app that was kind of like the first map. You know how we got Google Maps now?
Yeah, they were like MapQuest.
Yeah, well, he built like the first app that was like, and he did it for like one city. It was like one city, and that's how they they always updated it. Like, so they opened up a Dunkin' Donuts over here or whatever. They'd put it in the map, or whatever. So
Yeah.
it was like the first app. Well, when he sold it for like $300 million. Okay.
Well,
Him and his brother, and this was like after the New York Times wanted it done in New York City, and they started expanding in different states. And eventually he sold it out to this other company for like 300 million is what I read. Okay. Well, he spent 200 million of his 300 million to start another company that he started in 2002. That's now known as SpaceX, right? He owns 57% of the majority of it. So he has all the voting power on what they do. But he spent the majority of his fortune that he just made to start another company. And now he's the 5th richest person in the world. So what I'm getting at is he took that money and reinvested it. And by reinvesting it, he bettered himself long term. That's what cable companies are not doing.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. They're just, I don't know. To me, they're chasing a dollar, and that's it now.
It's the quickest way. it's like they're like prostitutes, man. It's the quickest 10, 20 bucks they can get.
All right. So the 5 biggest mistakes. Recognition sucks. Their time management sucks. Their realistic metrics to them are fucking extremely unrealistic. We've talked about how they're not being cable guys in a career anymore. It's just a job. And how being a contractor is, I don't know. I want to say a thing of the past, but I feel like cable companies are starting to get rid of their techs as well. So I really don't even know.
There's a lot of major contractors in the country, and they're just eventually, like I've said before, they're going to buy up all the smaller ones.
Yep.
And at some point, it's going to be about 5 to 7 real big cable contractors that do all the work from replacing feeder and hardline to installs to fiber to they're going to do it all eventually, right? Like, 5 to 7 different companies. Right now, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe over 1,000 contractor companies in the country. And that's not counting all the subcontractors that are everywhere, right? That are the little guy that's probably got 10 techs.
Yeah.
So they're going to be, it's always going to be a thing, because if it wasn't, Comcast or Charter or any of these major companies could operate with just in-house techs, but it would cost them astronomically out the ass with insurance and benefits and shit.
Oh yeah.
So that's why I don't think it'll ever go away. They just need to fix the system on how it's done, because until they do that, it's like a dog chasing its tail. It's like Einstein said, we're going to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over, and we're expecting it to be different. That's insanity, man.
Yeah, it is. And it's like you said, I think Einstein hit it on the head.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks again for tuning into the episode. Check us out on Facebook, Anchor, all the stuff I usually say at the end of every episode. So, anything else, Jesse?
Nah, man. I think we're good.
All right, guys. Tune in next time, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Peace.
Later. Like what you just heard? Then don't forget to click that subscribe button. Questions for the host or just want to say hello? You can email us at catvtechtalk@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/catvtechs. Thanks again for joining us, and don't forget, climbing, crawling, drilling, driving is just the beginning.